Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Ashtaprayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nishtiki. Om Agnanatmirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya. Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिनि नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादि पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्रीकृष्णचैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे 332:28 ज्ञानमेकं पराचीनैर् इन्द्रियैर्ब्रह्म निर्गुणम् अवभात्यर्थरूपेण भ्रान्त्या शब्दादिधर्मिणाम्. Those are averse to the transcendence. Those are averse to the transcendence. Realize the supreme absolute truth differently through speculative sense perception, and therefore, because of mistaken speculation, everything appears to them to be relative. So this is another class of transcendentalists who call themselves transcendentalists but who are actually averse to transcendence. So they realize the supreme absolute truth as relative truth. So the supreme absolute truth means something that doesn't change. Relative truth means that keeps changing. So though they call themselves transcendentalists, they actually realize the supreme absolute truth as something relative. The supreme absolute truth, personality of God, is one, and he is spread everywhere by his impersonal feature. This is clearly expressed in Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna says, everything that is experienced is but an expansion of my energy. Everything is sustained by him, but that does not mean that he is in everything. So how do we understand this statement? So let me ask you this question. How is Krishna, if Krishna is all pervading, why is Krishna not present in everything? Again, I'm repeating my question. If Krishna is all pervading, which means he is present everywhere, why is he not present in everything? Any thoughts? Already answer I read here in the last 3 lines. Actually, in the line that I marked also the answer is there.
Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah. Yeah. See, these basic truths we have to understand, because this is basic ABCD of Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana, the science of God. Basic in knowledge from Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, I'm everywhere, yet I'm not everywhere. And that is why we call this Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. What does it mean?
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Prabhuji, just like the Prime Minister, he is the Prime Minister, right? But he's all pervading. He doesn't have to be everywhere, but like he's the president. He's there, like
But how is he there?
with his counterparts are there. He has he has
Okay.
got his office. He's
Okay.
got his people around.
Okay.
So the Lord is there, then the demigods are looking around, the gurus are there, like he's all pervading. He's there everywhere, Kankan mein.
Yeah, so the way we have to technically answer this question is that Krishna is everywhere by his energy, but he himself is not there. Goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto. He himself is residing in Goloka, but by his energy he is all pervading. So that is why he's there everywhere, but he's not there everywhere. He's there everywhere through his energy, but he himself is not there everywhere. He's there in spiritual world. So these things are very fundamental concepts. We have to be very clear and answer very specifically. Sense perception, such as oral perception of the sound of a drum, visual perception of a beautiful woman, or perception of the delicious taste of a milk preparation by the tongue, all come through different senses and are therefore differently understood. Therefore, sensory knowledge is divided in different categories, although actually everything is one as a manifestation of the energy of the Supreme Lord. So, this sound of a drum is also energy of the Supreme Lord. Perception of a beautiful woman is also Supreme Lord. Delicious taste of a milk preparation is also Supreme Lord. But it is experienced differently. Though it is one as a manifestation of the energy of the Supreme Lord, it is divided into different categories experienced differently. Similarly, the energies of fire are heat and illumination, and by these two energies, fire can display itself in many varieties or in diversified sense perception, meaning it can be experienced differently. Mayavadi philosophers declare this diversity to be false. Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. This Jagat is a diversity of the Supreme Lord's energy, and Mayavadi philosophers call it as Mithya. But Vaishnava philosophers do not accept the different manifestations as false, they accept them as non different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are a display of his diverse energies. So we have to see this material world as non different from the Supreme Lord because it is actually a display of his energy. But of course, we see that this is a temporary display of his energy, meaning he'll display it, then he'll withdraw it. He'll display it, he'll withdraw it. So many a times this statement is also made. There is no difference between the energy and the energetic because the energy comes from the energetic. But this doesn't mean that the energy and the energetic are the same, but they are non-different. Meaning, because it is coming from the energetic, we can say energy is also same as energetic, but they are still different. So this is why this achintya bheda abheda tattva is very, very difficult for people to understand because they'll tell that we are speculating. We are just giving our own interpretation. But this is what Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna has only given the achintya bheda abheda tattva in Bhagavad Gita. And he describes this and says, this is the inconceivable potency of mind. So unless we understand this inconceivable potency of Krishna, we cannot really understand Krishna in truth. Evam yo veti tattvataha. See, understanding Krishna in truth, first of all, we need to understand how he is taking care of this material world. What is his relationship with this material world? Without understanding that, we cannot understand Krishna's, intimate pastimes with his, devotees in Goloka. See, we should understand Maharaj Parikshit was on a very exalted platform of bhakti, and he was already literally, very high stages of bhakti, right? So, uh, Shukadev Goswami could have just started talking about directly 10th canto or even more esoteric topics. But he starts with creation, like Purushottama Yoga, to understand Purushottama, Supreme Person, the best person. So first we have to actually, if we are anyhow, somehow or the other entangled in material world, we should actually hear more and more about the potency of the Supreme Lord, about how we should actually see the material world. Then we'll come to the position saying that oh, material and world is actually energy of Krishna. No, it is Krishna's energy. How can I misuse it? Today I'm misusing it for my own benefit. So for example, if somebody has given me 2000 rupees for donation. Now, if I misuse this, meaning if I use this for my own personal use, then it's wrong. It's very simple. So similarly, this whole material world is there as an energy of Krishna to be used for his pleasure. That is the intent. Like somebody gave this donation as an intent to serve Krishna. I have to use it to serve Krishna. Similarly, Krishna gave this material world with the intent to serve him. So we should use it that way. For which we have to see that this is actually an energy of Krishna. The philosophy that the absolute is true and creation is false, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, is not accepted by Vaishnava philosophers. The example is given that although all that glitters is not gold, this does not mean that a glittering object is false. It just says that it is not gold, but it is still glittering and it's a real object. For example, an oyster shell appears to be gold, and this appearance of golden hue is due only to the perception of the eyes. But that does not mean that the oyster shell is false. Similarly, by seeing the form of Lord Krishna, one cannot understand what he actually is. But this does not mean that he is false. The form of Krishna has to be understood as it is described in the books of knowledge such as Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. By our imperfect sense perception, we cannot understand the form of the Lord. If we cannot understand the form of the Lord, we cannot understand activities of the Lord, we cannot understand qualities of the Lord, we cannot understand anything. Sevan hi jivadav. And that is why this jiva is so important. That is why not eating non-prasadam is so important. That is why chanting Hare Krishna nicely is so important. Because otherwise we cannot understand. Sevan hi jivadav. Vayam eva spuratyada. Only when he reveals himself we can understand. Otherwise we can understand. And what does this reveal mean? Reveal doesn't mean only I. Reveal means here. And how does Lord reveal himself? To the extent of the purity of that soul. To the extent we are pure, Krishna will reveal himself. We will understand what Krishna is. And without understanding Krishna, what is the question of serving him? We to acquire knowledge about him. Therefore, it is said here, Gnanam Ekam. Bhagavad Gita confirms that they are fools who simply upon seeing Krishna consider him a common man. And the same thing applies even to Guru. Guru Shu Naramati. When one sees a Guru, senior Vaishnavas, considering them as common men is an offense. They do not know the unlimited knowledge, power, and opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Same sentences can be written about Guru also. They do not know the unlimited knowledge, power, and opulence of the Guru. Material sense speculation leads to the conclusion that the Supreme is formless. It is because of such mental speculation that the conditioned soul remains in ignorance under the spell of illusory energy. See, if we are speculating, which means that we don't know Bhagavad Tattva Vigna, we don't know the science of God. We might be initiated, we might be whatever, but we will remain in ignorance under Maya. That is why this Gnanam is very, very important. Clear knowledge, clear, specific knowledge, not some vague perception, a vague understanding. The Supreme Person has to be understood by the transcendental sound vibrated by him in Bhagavad Gita, wherein he says that there is nothing superior to himself. Matta parataram nanyat. The impersonal Brahman effulgence is resting on his personality. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Actually, Prabhupada is writing all this English. Actually, all of this English is either mostly Sanskrit or Bengali. Either it's Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, or something from Chaitanya Charitamrita. As we become more, we read Shastra more and more, we'll be able to recognize the Sanskrit or Bengali behind these sentences. The purified absolute vision of Bhagavad Gita is compared to the river Ganges. Ganges water is so pure that it can purify even the asses and cows. But anyone who, disregarding the pure Ganges, wishes to be purified instead by the filthy water flowing in a drain cannot be successful. Similarly, one can successfully attain pure knowledge of the Absolute only by hearing from the pure Absolute himself. In this verse, it is clearly said that those who are averse to the Supreme Person of Godhead speculate with their imperfect senses about the nature of the Absolute Truth. The formless Brahman conception, however, can be received only by oral perception and not by personal experience. Knowledge is therefore acquired by oral reception. Sorry. It is confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra, Shastra Yonitvat. One has to acquire pure knowledge from the authorized scriptures. So-called speculative arguments about the absolute truth are therefore useless. So this is not about creating some knowledge. It is about hearing some knowledge and then realizing that in our life. Only for some very rare special souls, Krishna reveals himself, even without them actually reading Shastra, right? So, but that's very rare. It's for really rare jivas. But for most of us, we should hear. And as I've been repeatedly saying, hear means read Srila Prabhupada's books. The actual identity of the living entity is his consciousness, which is always present while the living entity is awake, dreaming, or in deep sleep. Even in deep sleep, he can perceive by consciousness whether he is happy or distressed. Thus, when consciousness is displayed through the medium of the subtle and gross material bodies, it is covered. But when the consciousness is purified, in Krishna consciousness, one becomes free from the entanglement of repeated birth and death. So, consciousness is generally covered or contaminated, and this consciousness has to become purified. So, what does contaminated consciousness mean? Means that we are always just thinking about our own happiness. But when we start thinking about the happiness of Krishna, then that consciousness is purified. When uncontaminated pure knowledge is uncovered, it means that pure knowledge is uncovered from the modes of material nature, the actual identity of the living entity is discovered. And this is the Swarupa Sthiti. He is eternally a servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So for us to reach our eternal Swarupa Sthiti, we have to become uncovered from these modes. The pure Atma has to become free, clean. The process of uncovering is like this. The rays of sunshine are luminous, and the sun itself is also luminous. In the presence of the sun, the rays illuminate just like the sun. But when the sunshine is covered by the spell of a cloud or by Maya, then darkness, the imperfection of perception, begins. So when sunshine is covered by the spell of Maya, or when the consciousness of the jiva is covered by the spell of Maya, then darkness, andhakara, tamas begins. Therefore, to get out of the entanglement of the spell of nescience, one has to awaken his spiritual consciousness in terms of authorized scriptures. So again, emphasis on reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Yata mahanaham rupas vivrit panchavidha swarat ekadashavidastasya vapur andam jagat yataha. From the total energy, the Mahat Tattva, I have manifested the false ego, the three modes of material nature, the five material elements, the individual consciousness, the 11 senses, and the material body. Similarly, the entire universe has come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is described as Mahat Pada, which means that the total material energy, known as Mahat Tattva, is lying at his lotus feet. The origin or the total energy of the cosmic manifestation is the Mahat Tattva. From the Mahat Tattva, all the other 24 divisions have sprung, namely the 11 senses, including the mind, which is Karmendriya, Gnanendriya plus mind, 5 sense objects, which is Gandha, Rupa, Sparsha, etc. 5 material elements, Bhumi, Apo, Nalo, Vayu, come, and then consciousness, intelligence, and false ego. And so all the gross and subtle, including consciousness, have come from Mahat Tattva. Now, we should understand this. See, if the consciousness is mundane, how can it become spiritual? Meaning consciousness is now being said that it is coming from Mahat Tattva. But actually consciousness, we are saying we are talking about pure consciousness. How can pure consciousness come from Mahat Tattva? So this we should understand. This is the covered consciousness. This consciousness of the Mahat Tattva covers the pure consciousness. So this covering consciousness or impure consciousness has to be cleared, has to be removed. Then the pure consciousness will manifest. So this is impure consciousness, which actually comes with the jiva when he enters this material world. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of the Mahat Tattva, and therefore, in one sense, Because everything is an emanation from the Supreme Lord. There's no difference between the Lord and the cosmic manifestation. See, there's no difference in one sense, not literally. But at the same time, the cosmic manifestation is different from the Lord. The word Swarat is very significant here. Swarat means independent. The Supreme Lord is independent, and the individual soul is also independent. Although there is no comparison between the two qualities of independence, the living entity is minutely independent, Supreme Lord is fully independent. As the individual soul has a material body made of 5 elements and the senses, the Supreme Independent similarly has the gigantic body of the universe. But this is not his permanent body, it's just a temporary body manifested in this material world. The individual body is temporary. Similarly, the entire universe, which is considered to be the body of the Supreme Lord, is also temporary. And both the individual and universal bodies are products of the Mahatattva. One has to understand the differences with intelligence. Everyone knows that his material body is developed from a spiritual spark. And similarly, the universal body has developed from the supreme spiritual spark, super soul. As the individual body develops from the individual soul, the gigantic body of the universe develops from the supreme soul. Just as the individual body has consciousness, the individual soul has consciousness, the supreme soul is also conscious. But although there is a similarity between the consciousness of the supreme soul and that of the individual soul, the individual soul's consciousness is limited, whereas the supreme soul's consciousness is unlimited. Kshetragnam chapitmam viddhi sarvakshetreshu bharata. Super soul is present in every field of activity, just as the individual soul is present in the individual body. Both of them are conscious. The difference is that the individual soul is conscious of the individual body only, whereas the super soul is conscious of the total number of individual bodies. Though the individual soul is conscious of the individual body, but actually we are not conscious that we are the soul itself. Yeah. That's the level, that's the extent of ignorance we are in. The simple truth is so difficult to realize that I am not this body. Yesterday I had gone to KSRTC bus stand. Then I've seen people just, running around here, there, talking, eating, doing this, doing that. And I was thinking, like, everybody in ignorance. Nobody knows. Nobody knows who they really are. Right? So obviously then the need to preach. But then next question comes, okay, we have come to this platform, we've heard about all this. We ourselves don't realize. Then what can we tell them? If we tell them you're not the body, then they will ask us, okay, do you know that you're not the body? We can only theoretically say yes. Practically, we are still not on that platform. We are still living on the bodily consciousness. Any which way, I mean, we still have to give them. At least maybe somebody out there will become more spiritually conscious than we are, right? And that will be a big service. So somehow we have to just distribute this knowledge. Yesterday I was reading Prabhupada Lilamrita and a couple of days back. And Prabhupada is talking about how in big factories, he says in big factories, don't focus on book distribution. He says big factories just give them prasadam and kirtan. And then I was talking to a few devotees saying that how do we do? Obviously, big question is prasadam. I mean, so much of money. And we said, let's see, let's try to talk to people. And when we say food, people will also donate. Right? Maybe we can try. Because Prabhupada is clearly saying. In fact, Prabhupada says one more thing, that anybody who comes to the temple, he should have a full plate of prasadam. So we were thinking, how do we do this during the week in our centers? So we said, at least we should start with dona every day. Whoever comes, we should be able to give some dona prasadam. So there are so many things Prabhupada has told us. And if we can follow all that, then we will also remain in that consciousness and we can also give that consciousness to others. Yeah, so I think I'll stop here. Next verse. Oh, small one. Okay. एतद् वै श्रद्धया भक्त्या योगाभ्यासेन नित्यशः समाहितात्मानि संगो विरक्त्या परिपश्यति. This perfect knowledge can be achieved by a person who is already engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment. Oh, what a verse to end. Who is always absorbed in the thought of Supreme. Yesterday we were talking about absorption. He's aloof from material association. He's aloof, meaning not that he's not there in the material world, but he's not affected by any of this. They're very nice qualities that we have to develop. So we can get perfect knowledge from a devotee who is engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment. From such devotees, we have to acquire knowledge. So this faith is very, very important. Because actually one should have faith for pure devotional service. And we should hear from devotees who have faith in for pure devotional service, not just faith in devotional service. Because actually when Prabhupada says devotional service, he actually means pure devotional service. Like I said, there is nobody who speaks about mixed devotion. Mixed devotion is a feature of this modern demoniac world. Because we can't accept pure devotion. So it should be faith for pure devotion, steadiness to practice pure devotion, and of course, pure devotion naturally means full detachment. So whoever is engaged like this, from such a person, we should acquire perfect knowledge because he will have perfect knowledge. And if somebody is doing mixed devotion, he will not have perfect knowledge. If somebody is not steady, he will not have perfect knowledge. If he is not fully detached materially, he cannot have perfect knowledge. And somebody who has this faith, steadiness, full detachment, what else will he do? He will be always absorbed in the thought of the Supreme because he doesn't have any other absorption. The other category will have absorption in the material sphere, and this devotee will have absorption in thought of Supreme. So he's always aloof from material association, even if he's in the middle of, material world. The atheistic mystic practitioner of yoga cannot understand this perfect knowledge. Only persons who engage in the practical activities of devotional service mean full Krishna consciousness, not part-time Krishna consciousness, part-time Maya consciousness. Only such a person who is in full Krishna consciousness can become absorbed in full samadhi. It is possible for them to see and understand the actual fact of the entire cosmic manifestation and its cause. And they are able to see and understand the actual fact. They see the world around, they can see that it is why this entire cosmic manifestation is created, who is the cause behind it, why it is created, what should we do, etc., etc. It is clearly stated here that this is not possible to understand for one who has not developed devotional service in full faith. The word Samahitatma and Samadhi are synonymous. What does full faith mean? What does full faith means? Actually, this is described in Bhagavad Gita only. What is the meaning of full faith? Prabhupada, a very famous verse. Any idea? Anybody?
Complete surrender, to give up everything and to fix his mind last.
Okay, give up everything. Okay.
Complete surrender, Prabhu. Like mind, this thing and everything, and then give up all dharmas and come to me.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
take care of you.
Okay. Sarvadharman Paritijya.
Sarva
Okay.
dharma.
Okay. What else? So the other definition which can be given is Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhi. Ekeha Kurunandana. In that purport to that verse in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, Prabhupada talks that Vyavasaya Atmika Buddhi means having full faith. And that just by doing bhakti, sarva karma krita hoy, everything is achieved. That we don't have to do anything else separately. Mm. So again, I'm repeating the same thing. Having full faith, full surrender doesn't mean giving up our duties. It is doing it in the full consciousness of Krishna, that everything is for Krishna without any desire for sense gratification. And of course, if people have the ability to not engage in any kind of vritti and still manage their life, that is the best situation to be in. Mm. So those who are financially comfortable, they should really seriously think about this, because they're very fortunate, materially fortunate, because they don't have to really work for a living. So they can actually come onto this platform very quickly, where they can simply engage in full devotional service. Earlier stages, it is also devotional service, but little bit tinged with karma yoga, or bhakti based on our mood. But we still have to. We are not able to engage directly in action acts of devotional service. But somebody who doesn't have to actually, who doesn't need to work, because they have, yeah, Krishna has given them enough. Dil mange more. There is never enough to the for this. But yeah, practical extent, whatever practical extent, if somebody thinks that they can, then Krishna has given them enough, then they should seriously think about this path, dedicate their life to Krishna. Okay, I'll end here. If there are any questions, comments, anything. Okay, we'll stop here. Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhyo Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Ananda Koti Vaishnava ki jai. Hare Krishna.